7 o'clock. I will open the council meeting of the 21st of May 2019 with in the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the side entrance and gather at the designated emergency muster point. In no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given in the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. All councillors and staff are required to speak into their microphone. You may need to move your microphone closer to you to ensure you are heard and recorded on the live streaming. Your microphone will glow red when it is picking you up. First of all, I'll call for any apologies.
We have apologies from Councillor Taylor and Councillor Munro.
Will someone move those? Councillor Romano, second Councillor Privatera, all in favour? Aye against. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting? Go with Councillor Mileto first.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I'm not sure whether I've overlooked it or not, but my understanding was there was going to be a later item or a rescission motion with regards to the Orange Services pool. I don't seem to see that in my papers. Is it still going ahead tonight, can you say?
They've asked for it to be delayed to after the budgetary process.
Okay, that being the case, I don't have any conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a conflict of interest? Going for a walk.
I just got a cramp in my leg and just dropped the form over to Councillor Turner.
Now, there's a couple of ordinary council meeting late items. Both of them are closed, aren't they? Yeah. Just that they're back there enclosed. And there is an amendment for item 5.5. It's replacement to attachment page 183. Mover and second is incorrect. Okay, someone move that they be included?
Yes, I'll move.
Good. Okay, look, and there's a late item. Look, just before we start, I would like just to acknowledge that unfortunately last Thursday we lost three stalwarts of the Orange community, or Nashdale community, who were large part of the horticultural industry in Orange. And first of all, one was Graham Smith, whose funeral was today. Graham Smith was born and bred in Orange, but he was very, very significant in his input to the Nashdale School, Nashdale Community Hall. A lot of you would know he probably owns, and you wouldn't believe it, we've got a development application just about to come through to us here at the moment for the redevelopment on the side on Marlong Road, which is the Agrestic restaurant, and where the Badlands Brewery is and the Two Mouse Cheese Factory. He died last Thursday, and great person involved in the community. The second was Tom Ellis. Tom Ellis, a lot of you may not know, Tom Ellis came to Orange in the 1960s and opened a store, Lord's Place down here near the Rural Centre. It was called Elco Farm Supplies. He employed a lot of people, and he very, very instrumental again in the horticultural industry. He moved down to Boree Lane and he had chestnuts or hazelnuts or some sort of nut down that way. But he and his wife were very, very involved in the cultural scene here in Orange, particularly the arts and the theatre. Tom was in fact an alderman, councillor, so we lost him last Thursday. And his funeral's on Thursday. And then we lost Peter Darley. Peter Darley, born and bred in the area, there's families in this region. It's Orchardus. Peter had that magnificent, always pristine orchard called Daydawn, just past the Nashdale School on your right-hand side where you turn to go down to Boranor. Peter was involved with New South Wales Farmers and NFF and on a couple of major agri-political boards, so to say, and he's very, very instrumental in getting a code of practice put into Coles and into Woolworths, and a number of, list is too long to go through to. Peter has also been a Rotarian for many, many years, and as Councillor Turner would know, he's a Paul Harris Fellow, and spent much time in Papua New Guinea over the years with working bodies and projects they've done over there. And last Thursday he was subbing for a mate of his who went on holidays, and he was picking up food from Coles for Food Care, and he got up to their building where he was unloading and he had a massive heart attack and survived. So we've lost three stalwarts of the district. We've had incredible input to the community in various ways, and all of them particularly in an industry phase. So I'd like a minute's silence for the three of them. Thank you. Graham Smith, Tom Ellis, Dadali. Ladies and gentlemen.
Mr Mayor, before we continue, if I may, I'd like to acknowledge great win at the weekend, but that aside, I'd like to that the council would write and acknowledge and congratulate Andrew G on his great win for Calare. I'd also like that the council write to the Prime Minister congratulating him also on a great win and certainly a surprise win. To follow that through, then that we write a letter to the member for Calare reminding him of his government's $10 million commitment for the proposed, or once it's proposed, it's going to happen, our new conservatorium and planetarium, and request that he organise an urgent meeting with the appropriate federal minister, because we don't know who that is yet, to seek a confirmation that the government confirms its commitment to the promised funding, and to show that it does have unanimous support of this council, that the letter from the council be signed by the acting general manager, if that's appropriate at the time, the director of human services, the mayor, and hopefully all councillors. That would really show that it has full support of not only the council but the vast majority of the people of Orange.
Got a second. Can I say, Councillor Turner, part two of that, already been on to it. I've sent off a text. I also sent off an email as a reminder, just saying that there would be a letter coming forward. So thanks for that, and we'll make sure that goes around all councillors and gets all councillors to sign to show the support for the conservatorium and the planet. Thank you. I'll just, you want to speak to it? Sorry.
Just a quick thing, Mr Mayor. I think it would be remiss of us to also not acknowledge the hard work of Councillor Romano. He put in and made it a tough contest. I know he put a lot of time in, as did the other candidate, and I would like to also acknowledge their efforts in what they've done towards the election also.
I'm sure we can include that. Everyone happy if we include that? And I think it is an area, and I think that should go to Jess Jennings too. Everyone happy with that? You've got to declare an interest.
I've got to declare an interest now. I'd like to thank Councillor Miletto for those nice words. Yeah, it was a tough contest. It was a bit of fun, and what Councillor Turner said was something I've already said in the media, so we don't need to repeat it again. He made a promise, and he needs to know, Mr G needs to know that you don't break promises, and it was a promise. It wasn't a maybe.
All right, all in favour? Aye. Against, thank you. We've got a late item. That's it. That's 6.4. There's no Merrill minutes. There's no open forum this evening. And so 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 7th of May.
Second.
Mover in Councillor Duffy, a second in Councillor Nugent. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like an amendment or a correction, and I've passed it on to the Director of Corporate Services this afternoon. Just on item 1.4, declarations of pecuniary interest. I did indeed declare an interest on item 2.1, but it was as a non-executive director of Marathon Health, which is the entities that oversee the Headspace organisations. So I'm not a member of the Headspace consortium. That's been dealt with, and I'd just like colleagues in the chamber to allow me to amend that part. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have that fixed, Councillor Whitten. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, thank you. 5.2 is the statement of investments for April 2019.
3.2. 3.2.
Oh, sorry. 3.2, I just seen if you're awake. Sorry.
I'll move item
Sorry,
3.2.
3.2 is confirmation of the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 14th of May.
Second.
All in favour? Against, thank you. 4 is notice, there's no notice of motions or rescission. We move down to 5, general reports. 5.1 is recommendations and resolutions of the policy committees.
Do the recommendations.
Seconder, Councillor Nugent. All in favour? Thank you. 5.2 is the statement of investments for April 2019.
Second that.
Move Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor Whitten. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. 5.3 is the third quarter budget review and the performance report for 2018-19. Move Councillor Duffy. Seconder, first of all. Councillor Whitten, Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to this item, and I certainly support it, if I could just take the opportunity of thanking the outgoing GM, Mr Gary Stiles, for his dedication, contribution to the Orange City Council. Whilst I didn't have the opportunity to have a great deal of dealings with Stiles, his door was always open to myself. He always was willing to give direction where required. So as the Chair of the Economic Development Committee, I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Mr Mark Burdak for his contribution regarding some of the significant things which he done whilst he was in Council. I had a fair bit to do with Mr Burdak, more than what I did with Mr Stiles, but during that time I saw some of the projects which he had, which was his design and leadership of Activated Orange and the first comprehensive strategy for jobs and economic growth in Orange. That also included, from memory, the design and leadership of the life precincts, which would create, somewhere in the vicinity of maybe 5,000 to 6,000 jobs over the next 10 years. Expand population by up to 12,000 people, generating jobs in construction, retail, health, and manufacturing and professions. During these meetings, we also discussed the design leadership of Future City project to make the city work for the 22nd century. Also, the retail data project to help the council and retailers better prepare for disruption and growth in their businesses. There was also occasions when we had school consultations and projects which engaged school kids, helping design our future city, which I think, Mr Mayor, you were part of. You came in and saw that. That was certainly an initiative which was well received. There's also leadership, I believe, in reinvigorating events, programs such as WOW Festival and Day on the Green, which I believe are expected to bring up to 10,000 multi-day visitors to our shops, restaurants, accommodation provider, which also will stimulate economic activity. One of the other things which come to mind was the regional deal project that Mr. Burdak was instrumental or helping negotiate and bring hundreds of $millions to investment in our local economy. I've had contact with several of the members of the Economic Development Committee who have contacted me and expressed that Mr. Burdak was a breath of fresh air, and they acknowledged and wanted me to comment that from their community point of view and also from the committee point of view that they certainly appreciated his involvement and also the way that he worked closely with them, greatly appreciated. In the past, I'm aware that before Mr. Burdak came here, that he was involved in a project of bringing dentistry to Orange, medicine to the Orange, and a range of other projects. Previous roles that set the foundation for the vision of his vision, and obviously the Economic Development Committee vision of Orange becoming a centre of excellence in health and medical services, education and research. My view and the view of the Economic Development Committee that his departure, along with Mr. Stiles, will be a great loss to the Orange community.
Thank you. Look, can I just remind councillors, we've got a motion here for this. This is not, we're not going to use this as an exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two questions
Yeah, what
in
page?
relation to the performance indicators. But first, I would like to echo sentiments already expressed regarding Mark Burdak, particularly the constructive, open, professional approach. Do tend to ask a lot of questions, and I
That's
would
okay.
say
But,
that's
so what's the question? What page?
question. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I assume you want to direct specifically to the questions and don't want me to address anything Councillor Mileto may have already raised.
I don't think it simply got nothing to do with the budget review and performance report.
So the two questions are, firstly, on page 83, the number of residents supported in the supported accommodation services. I think perhaps in the next review we might be able to have a little bit more information. Rather than having a performance comment as stable, I would have thought that the measure should actually be the number of which support is provided to, or perhaps a comparison over time. Secondly, I'm also interested in 5.3.1. It's related to the supporting agencies delivering affordable and social housing, and it makes mention of only one provider in our local community that council has been working with. My question is, and I would like to see, I guess, in the next performance review, what we are doing with other providers or other opportunities outside simply Housing Plus. So I don't know whether those questions can be answered today.
Does someone want to take them on? Those on those, or would you like to take those on?
Yes, and my question, particularly in relation to the affordable housing, would, when us councillors, or when we councillors are approached by people particularly interested in social and affordable housing, into which pigeonhole, who do we take those questions to? Because it overlaps planning, it overlaps with the community services. Who's the best person, Mr. Mayor?
Good question. I'd first of all take that to
Planning. Great, thank you very much.
I can certainly confirm that council is dealing with a number of other developers that are interested in affordable housing, not necessarily social and affordable housing. I believe, while we'll take it on notice, I believe Housing Plus is the only one acting in that area at present actively.
that answer your.
Thank you, I'll follow up.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Romano.
Mayor, my question is on page 63, item 2.3.3, developing an operational plan for the use of Naylor Pavilion for archery. Where are we at with the archery? What's happened with it? Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could find out. There was an issue with the first archery equipment that was installed. If I could get an answer on what's happening with it.
Yeah.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, There was an issue with the protective sheeting behind to stop the arrows if they missed the butts. So what we did was we checked with Archery New South Wales and Archery Australia. They came back to us and said that what we had installed was in fact the correct heavy equipment. What we had to do was not it, or rather restrict the types of bows that are used. External bows that are used for hunting or the like are much more powerful than indoor archery bows, so that was the advice from them. We also contacted Archery New South Wales and a couple of the other archery clubs, so we have a visitor coming to Orange as soon as they are able to help us with preliminary structure for the setup of the club. We've ordered the target butts and they've arrived, so they're ready to be installed. And we've had initial discussions with the bow hunters representation around how it might work. So whilst it's taken longer than
Could I just ask that Councillor Romano be kept in the loop?
absolutely.
Yeah, good on you. Any other Councillor Nugent?
So, while we're on that page, Mr Mayor,
Page 63.
63, item 2.3.5 relates to the action is develop recreational facilities at Mount Canobolas Precinct.
Yep.
The only performance indicator and performance comment relates to the mountain bike trails, mountain bike activities. Surely there's other recreational activities we'd be wanting to do out at the Mount Canobolas Precinct, and should that be reflected in this performance document, or perhaps in the next one? I am interested to know whether there are any other recreational facilities we're considering out there.
Are you saying we are considering, or that actually are there they're working on?
No, to develop additional recreational facilities is the action item. And the only thing referenced there is the mountain bike trails. I think there's other recreational facilities that I would like to sort of see developed out at the precinct.
Yeah, but that's a different thing to what we've agreed to. What's in here?
Last budget.
These are the ones that we've agreed to.
Yep.
This is not a wish list of anyone wants to put something on there. Is there anything on this that we've missed?
Correct, Mr Mayor. It does reflect the community strategic initiative specifically for that, so that's what's been reported on. There certainly are opportunities that we can work with other groups. But the mountain bike trail was this project of council that we were working on. Project that's on our land, that's at Lake Canobolas, obviously. So we can include some. But note that just the structure of this is that the initiative that was in. Add those other elements.
I think I do know there's a group here in Orange that through Cabon Council of seeking their support in doing some trail work to link up with existing trails to come in from a different angle. That's one I know of, but I think they're doing that through Cabon first. That's the only one I know of outside of that. Any others, Councillor Maletta?
Just in regards to item 2.3.2, page 62, regards to, item 2.1, delivery of the Orange Aquatic Centre Capital Works Program, and if we look at the performance comment, Capital Works Program for 2018-19 delivered. My question would be to Mr. Maunder here, and what I'm curious to know is the asset management plan made provision for the replacement or refurbishment of existing pools in the aquatic centre. For example, the two outdoor pools, is my understanding, are very old and need work, in particular the diving pool, which I understand is only held together by water. Which
were a pool?
Well, if the water was to come out of the pool, would the pool collapse?
Oh.
I might ask my fellow director Anne to give you the engineering answer on the pool, but the indicator in there is about the capital works program for 18-19. That related primarily to the refurbishment of the change rooms, which was completed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we don't have, to answer your specific question, there is no money in the budget for a replacement or roof outdoor pool.
Okay, so I guess my next question is if there was any issues identified that require major works on the 50-metre pool or the diving pool, that create an opportunity for us to use money or expand on existing facilities, rather than, as we're going to speak about later on, gifting upgrade to the pool of the ex-services 10 years using ratepayers' money. I mean, can we have a report back on that? If there's major works being done or need to be done on the diving pool and the other outdoor pool?
I suppose certainly a report can be brought back, yes. This meeting at council resolved to do the planning, conduct a review of the Orange Aquatic Centre and what opportunities there were for future development. Imagine that all those items would any number of iterations. So repurposing the diving pool, repurposing the diving tower, for example, and running a water slide, that's an option.
I understand that, but
There's all sorts of different things that can
yeah. I mean, there's a rescission motion coming before council next month with regards to ex-services pool. I would like to have that information available to me when I need to make a decision on how, I see, the issue being resolved as far as whether we take on ex-services or whether there's this capital works which needs to be undertaken with regards to the diving pool and the other pool. I'd like to know what other options are available rather than to make a decision on the ex-services pool, that's all.
We do have a maintenance program for the Aquatic Centre. We do have a capital works program for the Aquatic Centre. No major works identified in that are required for its operation currently. So current state, no major works required. If we want to do something else, then a different discussion. That's around.
May I just ask a question then, because that's made statement. Diving pool only there because the water's in. If you took the water out, it would collapse. That's
My understanding.
That through the chair,
Yeah.
if I may. I have heard that the ground is water charged. So if you were to empty the diving pool at the moment, it's likely to pop out of the ground, similar to if you were to pump out a septic tank without balancing it with water, then you've got that possibility that they can pop out of the saturated ground. Where I've had that situation in the past, I've installed dewatering spear points and dewatered the ground around the pool that we've needed to empty, and we keep pumps operating to keep that groundwater level down, or the water table down in those areas, so it doesn't allow the pool to pop up out of the ground. I'm not aware of it being any structural issue with the pool itself other than that.
Okay, thank you.
What it probably is.
Yeah, I knew there was issues with, and there's been issues with it as long as Noah was a boy, but I'm just wondering whether those issues of water around the pool pushing it up, whether it's caused any structural damage or potentially has the capacity to cause structural damage, because I guess what I'm looking at is the big picture is, have we budgeted, if that's going to occur or it's a problem, to rectify that issue? Have we factored that in moving forward for the next couple of years in the budget if that does occur? So that's the sort of things which I'm weighing up when I'm looking at another or rescission motion come the 1st of June. So are there any things which council are aware about that we need to consider as councillors?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, as a seconder of the motion of this as the report for this Q3 of the 2018-19 budget, I do respect the comments that are being made by the councillors that new monies and new things be looked at, but that's why we have the new budget coming back to us in weeks. This is where we've had that opportunity to put all of those things into that budget, well, when it comes back to us. So really this is looking at monies that have already been allocated and if we're on schedule to spend that money, or it's going to be underspent. Well, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Right, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
5.4 is an update on outstanding resolutions of council, including questions taken on notice and notices of motion. Just get a seconder first. Councillor Prevatera, thanks. Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Page 166, where I requested a report on the BMX track out at Anzac Park. I can't recall the email, but also can't recall the report that was going to be presented to Council on the 2nd of April. Did that occur? Or?
It didn't, Mr.
Yep, you're right.
No, it hasn't, Councillor. That report's been written and it's ready to come to council. It's been deferred a couple of times, just balancing the council papers. It's ready to go. It'll be in the next meeting of council.
I won't be at, but
I'm sure you
I
can
can
get a
provide
copy.
it. I can.
I'll get
Yeah.
a copy. As I've said before, it is
I
a
agree.
blight on the whole Anzac Park. No one uses it. Something has to be done. It's either got to be spent a lot of money on it, remediating it, or coming up with some other use.
Available through. Chair, it's available. I can circulate it to councillors tonight.
That'd be handy if you get it out to councillors the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Everyone happy with that? Hold on. I couldn't agree with you more. I was up there having a look at that on the weekend. I mean, you know, I go up there a lot. I haven't seen anyone on it. I haven't even seen someone lost on
I
it.
go past once or twice a day and be rare to see anyone on it.
Bit of an eyesore. If you're across at the hospital and had a room down this end and we're looking at that, you wouldn't feel too flash. Councillor Whitten.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, page 161, the item 4.1, notice of motion update on hot mix plant. Again, it would be good if we could get an update for you, Mr Mayor, to the acting general manager. Acting general manager.
Acting, yes. Oh, we get onto that.
Thank you, Mr.
The others? All in favour? All against, thank you. 5.5 is the strategic policy review.
Happy to move it, Mr Chairman.
Happy to second it.
Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support the recommendations, all the recommendations. I would like to just note or acknowledge the submission from Mr Durin. We don't often get submissions in relation to our strategic policies, and I think it's good to see a member of the community making a submission, and I think making some really salient points in that submission. Raise the issue about abstaining in meetings, and I note that the local Office of Local Government has that can happen with under certain conditions. I was just wondering how that is actually recorded in the meeting minutes. There would be a separate section saying abstain. Is that how it would work? Not that I'm looking to abstain on anything tonight, but just a general interest question.
You could be the first. I'll put you.
It would be proposed to put in brackets next to it under the absent, or put another line saying.
Thank you. Once again, I'd just like to acknowledge that submission by Mr Durin and the points that he's raised.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. Well, I'd just say, I'll go with the recommendations, but there's a couple of policies there that I'm well known for not thinking they're a hogwash. I repeat it. I think the code of conduct is worth paper that's written on. But all in favour?
Aye.
Against, thank you. 5.6 is table drains on the Northern Distributor Road.
Move the recommendation.
The Councillor Turner, second to Councillor Nugent. All in favour?
Mr Mayor,
I thought you got out.
I'd like to comment on this. This was something that I raised quite some time ago, I think. It's to do with, particularly at night time, if you pull over, there's very deep gutters in lots of parts of the Northern Distributor. So putting up some signs would help, but I still think we should be careful. Somebody could tip over if they do pull over, not in between signs. You can't sort of have a sign. How far apart are the signs going to be? 200 metres, 100 metres. Maybe some of those reflector posts. I don't know. I think if any councillor has a look, you probably already know what I'm talking about. But it is odd because say the police pull you up or an ambulance, or you got emergency services behind you at night time, you tend to pull over to the left, and what I noticed is it's a very deep descent in most parts of the Northern Distributor. So I don't know whether these signs are going to be a help, but I don't know whether they're going to solve potential accidents. That's why I raised it in the first place.
Yeah, just as there's many streets that don't actually have a parking lane associated with them, if police or emergency services ask you to pull over, or to pull up, you generally continue on until you can get round a corner or something along those lines. There's not much else you can do in those situations. There's many areas of the Mitchell Highway that also has sharp drop-offs and not enough room to pull over a vehicle. And I guess that's been done to accommodate drainage in this area, as the report says, the body of the report says. And to rectify that is a fairly expensive process, so it's another level of service that you're going to provide full parking lanes if you were to provide that, if council was to provide that. It's a question about what is the best use of council's funds, limited funds in the roads budget, and I guess the recommendation of the author is to install no stopping signs in those areas. And if council decides that they want to do something else, we're happy to investigate that.
About we monitor it and see how it goes. And
Yeah, I think, okay, well, that's a start. I think no stopping signs are a start, but I think, we should think about what else we can do to prevent somebody tipping over. Anyway.
Okay.
I think, if I may, Mr Mayor, I think in the last council we discussed about limited areas for trucks to stop along. I think the only one we identified was at Chinaman's
End.
First available area from along, especially along the Northern Distributor, where they can actually
have to turn right to come
over.
Back into town to go on the Chinaman's benefit.
Oh yeah, you're right, because it's going around the other way. That's right, and we identified now that we were bypassing it.
Yeah.
The next one was down near Victoria. Yeah.
Right, all in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you very much. The Acting General Manager will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration via a closed meeting of the Orange City Council. Extend an invitation to any member of the public present at the meeting to make a presentation to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, and the Local Government Act General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred into Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act, and should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and public. Items to be considered in closed are 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 and 6.4.
No submissions received from the public.
The items to be considered are acquisition of land Southern Feeder Road, part Stage 3, acquisition of land Southern Feeder Road Stage 3, tender for Brendan Sturgeon Oval Lighting Design and Construction, and the late item recruitment of a General Manager position. For the confidentiality, the items are classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, 2, bracket C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. Is the live streaming off?